People who actually grew up in the 90s, in their teens or 20s, what was it like? You had a very big book of music CDs and it was everything. And having a 6-disc CD changer was very cool. I graduated high school in 1995. I was in CA. I was totally into the grunge scene. I wore ripped up clothes from the thrift store. I loved Nirvana, Alice in Chains, etc. I remember getting a pager that was $5 per month. You could get so many cases and buttons for them. After high school I didn't work for a year. I had to share my mom's car. I used to take it out at night for joyrides to LA and brought my friends so we could go dancing. She never found out, I think. The rave scene was going on, so I went dancing to techno, house and drum and bass all night. And yes, I did drugs. Everyone did them. My dad brought home a computer when I was 20. I learned HTML and linked websites to each other. That was before Yahoo, Google or even Dogpile. I used eBay for free and would buy and sell concert tickets and jewelry. I actually made money. And I used Match.com for free and met the first love of my life. We dated for 3 years until his life fell apart when his awesome band broke up. I knew I could work and go to junior college at night. I worked full-time in an office at age 21. Then I got to go to the university. I only paid $2,000 a year at a Cal State University. I shared a condo with 2 roommates and only paid $300 a month. I went to the dealer and got the car I wanted, a red Honda hatchback, for the price I wanted to pay. I had excellent credit, so I racked up $10,000 in debt and it was no problem to pay the minimum payments. I made $11 an hour at office jobs. I went out with friends, dated a punk guy for a while, went to concerts and dive bars all the time. I moved around to different apartments, dated a lot of people, and had a lot of fun at the clubs. I paid my way to a BA degree. It was all fun and games until 9/11 happened. If you went to a big concert or a music festival and you lost your friends, you just had to go on without them. And it happened all the time too. I think that's one thing the cell phone generation can't relate to. Unless you were standing next to somebody, or you called them on a landline, you had no idea where they were. Birth of the internet as we know, first generation where mobile phones became common, some amazing music. And just missed out on the embarrassment of everything stupid we did being posted on social media forever. We had to wait until film was developed to know if our selfies turned out okay, only to find out we double-exposed film and all the pictures were ruined. Less stressful. You didn't constantly get bombarded with instant info on your phone from commercials to work stuff to your 100+++ friends on Facebook. Renting a few movies was a luxury and experience rather than now when you stream and cram all the good stuff you can manage, ending up with either nothing to watch or too much so you don't really appreciate it. I remember when you usually got to watch the next episode next week, so you actually planned to get time for it and really looked forward to the next plot twist. Sure, I enjoy that so much is so easier and faster than it used to be, but there was something more that's not there anymore that I think we miss and new generations will never know. The future generations won't have that extra feeling from delayed gratification. The personal pizza from doing your school reading. The movie rentals. The Spyro demo that came with your Domino's order. Maybe we just appreciated things differently as kids than what we do as an adult. But to complicated that perspective, we used to have a world that was a bit more disconnected to information and more connected to our personal interests. Makes me want to cry knowing that lifestyle won't exist the same way again. Wish there was a way to create that, or some sentiment that could be passed on to our kids. I felt there was a lot more cooler places to hang out. The malls were great and not depressing or closed down. Our towns weren't taken over by Walmart yet. Blockbusters were definitely the biggest highlight of the 90s, but I feel people forget that there were these awesome mom-and-pop video stores that were awesome as well. The ones that I would hang out for hours at watching movies, playing video games, and they didn't seem to mind. Speaking of hanging out, I also felt like fast food places were more comfortable, clean, and inviting to not only eat but sit and socialize with your friends. McDonald's were our after-school spot. It just seems odd to me that growing up in NJ, Walmart, Target, Costco, Lowe's, etc. weren't common until the early and mid-2000s. I remember my parents traveling half an hour to a Walmart which was brand new at the time. 45 minutes to a Lowe's. And this was in the most densely populated state. Now they're everywhere. I miss all the variety of stores and all the regional and dead brands that there were. Ames, Caldor, Bradley's, The Wiz, department stores like Value City, Steinbach, Stearns. Of course other parts of the country had their own. It was fun not to have a cell phone. I was in my 20s then. I was a teen in the 80s. The 90s were, for me, the last great decade, for all the reasons people will list here. After 9/11 everything collapsed, and we've never truly recovered. It's really difficult to understand the optimism of the 90s and really understand how different America is now if you hadn't come of age yet. It has always felt like 9/11 was the tipping point for the populace to default to fear rather than other emotions. ASL. And spending time on your away messages. It was when the horrible mom jeans people think are cool now were first a thing. They were just a little bit uglier because they were stonewashed. A lot of flannel and angst and alternative music. CDs were the new cool replacement for cassettes. MTV still played music. Cool kids had pagers, beepers. Everyone died on the Oregon Trail, playing an actual floppy disk game, and no one ever really knew where in the world Carmen Sandiego was. It felt hopeful, like there was a bright future just over the horizon. I was in high school, and I felt like I could do anything, be anything, when school finished. Technology was improving, but it didn't feel like it was taking over your life. Music was awesome. On Saturday mornings, I'd get up and watch the end of Rage, followed by Recovery on the ABC, Australia, and the live music scene was the fucking best. My CD collection was my life. For me, that hopeful feeling ended when September 11th happened. It felt like there was a shift from, let's work together for a better world, to, we have to protect what's ours, no matter the cost. I don't think we'll ever get that feeling back. Everyone seemed a lot more upbeat and outgoing. Agreed. To come of age just as the internet was reaching the masses and the dot-com boom was picking up momentum, all with a soundtrack of honest, quality music on the radio, the world felt like such a hopeful place. There was a big wide exciting future we were all moving towards, and I was there watching it all unfold. This is the nostalgia that Vaporwave brings back for me, in fleeting wisps. That feeling of wide eyes beholding wide skies, and asterisk oh wow, I can't wait to see what the future holds. Asterisk. Of course, Vaporwave is indelibly tinged with the cynical hindsight of a lot of that hope being largely a marketing ploy. But the phoenix always rises from the ashes. I won't fall into the trap of mistakenly thinking there will never be another era when the world is full of optimism and hope, just because I'll never be young for another one. It was life before cell phones and your parents didn't know where you were half the time. My dad had a pager. I remember playing basketball, baseball, and football with the neighborhood kids. Nickelodeon was good. Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers. Super Nintendo. Good times. Edit. You always carried change for the payphone. DuckTales after school. I was in my 20s. It was a time of optimism. The wall fell. World peace was around the corner. It was fun as hell. Music had changed, and I liked it. This so much. I was in art school and we would sit and talk about how moody and depressed we were all the while making these gaudy and living color looking paintings with bright colors. If you've ever seen Spaced, they just nailed it. It was amazing in every way. Being the last real generation that grew up outdoors but also navigating the technology that was coming up. And the media made so much money from advertising that they didn't need to scare you to get attention. It was great. Despite the convenience of having a device in your hands 24 hours a day that can answer any question and connect you to anyone, most of my peers all agree that life was better without it. I remember some friends of mine were super into movie trivia and they'd just quiz each other all the time about it, and argue over who was right and who was wrong. They had these big books of movie facts that they'd drag out of the house to the park so they could look things up and prove who was right. Now we just ask Google. Or Siri. Oregon Trail. Trying to find out about cool bands or movies required some legwork. Maybe you had a cool older brother or friend and they'd make you a mixtape of punk bands or something. Or you'd stand around in a bookstore reading record reviews. You'd buy albums based on what genre the band was and how cool the cover was. Magazines were huge because before the internet, that's how you'd get current information about music and movies. MTV at one point was awesome. They mainly showed music videos, but started to introduce some weird animated shows like Liquid Television and Beavis and Butthead. 120 Minutes was 2 hours of alternative and punk videos late every Sunday night. Headbangers Ball was all metal videos. Radio was sometimes actually really cool, and you could hear some great bands for the first time. DJs were still allowed to play what they wanted at least some of the time, and there was massive prestige in breaking new bands. There were a few years in the early 90s when being underground was something that was very sought after, so everyone was always looking for new and interesting bands. I got to see some legendary bands, like Nirvana, The Breeders and the Ramones. If you wanted to see a TV show, you had to be in front of your TV when it aired, or have programmed your VCR ahead of time. Of course, half the time you fucked up the programming and your show didn't record. There were only 13 or so channels on TV until cable came around, and then there were maybe a couple dozen. Pornography was very hard to get if you weren't a. over 18 and b. brave enough to buy a magazine from a convenience store or a tape from a creepy porn store. Porn tapes were often traded or passed around from friend to friend as they were in short supply. Almost everyone had a story of finding porn magazines in the woods for some reason.
Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.